Hello from Blue Willow Bookshop in Houston, Texas. I'm Kathy Berner, the event coordinator at the shop. We are honored to host this virtual event celebrating the launch of Myrtle Peril by Elizabeth Bunce. I am joined by my colleague Jennifer, who is Elizabeth Bunce's #1 fan. I'm not
Indeed.
kidding you. And behind the screen, we have Caroline, who's handling all the tech details tonight. Please join us in welcoming Elizabeth Bunce to the screen.
Yay!
Yay! Hi, Elizabeth!
We're so glad to see you.
I am so happy to be here, and it's so great to be celebrating Myrtle Book 4 with some of Myrtle's favorite booksellers. 4, right? Can you believe it?
Book 4.
Okay, whoever phone that is, let's stop that. Okay, so this is like live TV.
It is. It's just like a talk show in the morning.
It is. So can you tell us about Myrtle 4?
Okay, so in Myrtle Peril, Book 4 of the Myrtle Hardcastle Mysteries works with, well, all of the Myrtle books do this, but I feel like Book 4 really brings together some of my favorite things, some of my favorite mystery tropes, and some of my favorite spooky Victorian happenings. So the action begins when Myrtle's father must go to hospital to have his tonsils removed. And while in hospital, Mr. Hardcastle believes he has witnessed a murder. And naturally, Miss Judson and Myrtle and Peony do not believe him. And so he must convince our skeptical duo that a murder has truly occurred and that he was not hallucinating.
And he can't speak very well.
Yeah, yes. And of course he's recovering from tonsillectomy, and so his voice is he does not have his normal stentorian courtroom voice to work with, and so that was tremendous fun to write. But what I loved about this idea, what really so my first thought was to send Myrtle to the hospital. It's a trope that I saw. I noticed it over and over because I watch a lot of classic mystery TV, like the Rockford Files and Murder, She Wrote and Father Dowling mysteries. And there's this classic trope where the sleuth goes to the hospital, and while in a anesthesia induced fog, witnesses a murder, and then no one ever believes them. But then I thought, how much more fun would it be if it's Myrtle's father in the hospital, and Myrtle and Miss Judson have to be convinced that there's a murder. So the tables have turned on our team, and watching father trying to convince his womenfolk that there's something is amiss and that they must do something about it was great fun. And the other part of the mystery was inspired by real life events, both in Victorian England and in my own life. And if you see, we'll see if we can get it picked up on the webcam. Yours might be a little better, but yes, there, right there inside, and is this lovely image of an abandoned ship. And the secondary storyline in Myrtle Peril involves an heiress who a young woman appears asking for Mr. Hardcastle's help in determining her true identity. Is she the long lost Ethel Snowcroft, who was lost at sea in a shipwreck several years ago when she was just a toddler? And that story was inspired by the real life ghost ship. And if we have any kids listening, I'm sorry, a ghost ship does not have actual ghosts on it. It's kind of like a ghost town. It just means an abandoned ship. But that's also very cool, because there's this tremendous real life historical mystery of the ship, the Mary Celeste, which was found in the 1870s, just sailing along on its path with no crew. Its entire crew had vanished into thin air. And to this day, no one knows what happened to the captain and her crew. And aboard that vessel, and the spark of idea that I worked with aboard that vessel, was Captain Briggs, Mrs. Briggs, and their 2-year-old daughter, Sophie. and what happened to Sophie Briggs. And so the idea is what happened to the little girl who was on the Persephone when she sank. And this young girl, Sally Cook, appears and hires Myrtle's father to help her prove her identity. And so those two storylines converge in the hospital with all kinds of 19th century medical shenanigans. And it's great fun putting them in this crazy new milieu. So we're going to learn all kinds of gory medical details from the era, and our fans are going to love it.
That's fantastic.
So how do you go about planting all those historical facts? Because you've got loads of, you even got the Fenians from the Irish rebellions. So how do you plant them in so seamlessly?
Oh, it's just so easy.
It's just so easy.
That.
You just write along. You pick up.
It's just to write a line. Yeah. So the books take about a year of advanced research. So I've been really lucky with my schedule on the Myrtle books in that up until now, I have known about a year in advance when the next book is due and what it's going to be about. So I can start doing the research for the things that interest me, and the plot lines that emerge and the ideas that emerge along the way become the story seeds. And then I am a die-hard adherent to NaNoWriMo, and I think probably most people watching tonight know what that is. It's looming. It's coming up in less than a month. It is National Novel Writing Month.
You write a novel in a month.
In a month. I haven't heard of that.
Yes. You look stunned.
November and novel. Of course.
The idea is to write a 50,000 page novel during the month of November, and thousands, perhaps millions of crazy people all over the world sit down and commit to this plan and do their darndest
doing it
to get the words on the page. Okay. And I do that every year with Myrtle because it works out really well with the schedule.
Oh, yeah.
Because the books, I usually turn in the revision in September. I can take a little time off to do time off and have, and then October we do promo, and then November I'm ready to get back with my feet in the game. Cool. And what I typically do is I roar through, and I always hit my 50,000 word goal. And for me, that's not a full Myrtle novel. The Myrtle novels are about 73,000, but 50,000 words. It's a good goal. I always hit those 50,000 words. I get a lot on the page. I know by the end of the month, I know what the crime was, who's been killed, where they've been killed, why they've been killed, and all of the mechanics of the murder.
Okay.
And the backstory. And I'm like, oh, I get to November 30th and I go to bed triumphant. And I'm like, yes, I've written the story. And I wake up on December 1st and I'm like, you haven't written the story, you've written the backstory. I have, because during that time, I'm not writing any of the actual scenes of Myrtle investigating and how she finds clues and how she pieces those clues together.
That's still a very good structure. But
it's a really good start. So I know all of that information, and then I just sit down and I try my best to write from beginning to end and plant the clues along the way and draw the plot threads together. But the interesting thing is that this is the way my brain works, just naturally. I see one idea, one totally unrelated idea, and think those have to belong together in the same story. And I just find the fascinating connections, and they over the course of several drafts, they just pull together. And in some ways, it really feels like they pull together pretty naturally, pretty organically for me. Although, you know, it does take a good solid year of putting words on the page and moving them about and polishing and refining. But twisting those ideas into one cohesive storyline is so much fun. So much fun. Why write one story if you can write 6 in one?
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Right? How can I make this more complicated?
Yes, because there are a lot of things going on, and then you sometimes the reader sometimes lose the thread, so it's kind of like a red herring,
Right.
but
It's
you
but
got and you got to
it's not
come
a red
back.
herring. It's
It's
more
more
of
of
a
a
like
distraction.
Yes, I was gonna say that.
So I heard another writer a couple of weeks ago, and it's a grown up book, The Enigma of Room 622. And it's like 500 pages long for a mystery. He said he knew there was going to be a dead body, but he didn't know who the murderer was or the murderee until like page 115. Does that happen to you? Or do you always start that way?
Sometimes I don't, well, I usually want, well, by page 115, we're half done with the Myrtle book. So we usually need we need we need the body on the page a little quicker than that. I
Yeah, that's true.
usually
Well,
have
he starts with the body, but he didn't know.
he didn't know who it was and how they got there. Yeah, that happens, and that happens a lot in the early drafts. Fortunately, I have time to make it seem like I knew all along. Of course.
Right. Right.
And did every book get written the same pattern?
Wow, that's an interesting question.
I came up with
You
I-
did. I'm proud of
I
you.
will say that I know we're here talking about book 4, but I'm just wrapping up the line edits on book 5. Myrtle means
Yes.
Myrtle means and opportunity.
Yes, I love it.
And that
Nice.
one actually came about a little bit differently because I didn't get that year of lead time. We sold the book last fall. And so I didn't know the previous May that I was going to be writing another Myrtle book. And so I hadn't been doing all of the research. And so when I sat down to write, I was just writing, and I was putting clues on the page, and I wasn't entirely sure. It was sort of the reverse of my normal process, where before I start the actual construction of the story, I have all of that backstory. With last year I didn't even do NaNoWriMo because I was still working on the line edits for book 4. So December, I just was like, okay, we're going to Scotland and here's what happens. And I wrote the clues as they happened, and I figured out what they were along the way. Not my favorite, but it worked. It worked
Okay,
out
that was
great.
going to be my question. You prefer the process you've used for 1 through 4?
No, I don't prefer any process. None of them are good. They're all terrible. There's no good way to write a book. There's no good way to write a novel. They're all bad.
Okay, you go.
But whatever gets you from chapter 1 to the end, you just kind of go with it. I'm trying to find the least bad way to do things, but I'm sure I'll find many, many more terrible ways to write my way through a novel as I go forward.
There you go.
Well, great Aunt Helena. She's one of my favorite characters.
Awesome.
Okay. And like in the first book, Premeditated Myrtle, you would just enjoy disliking her. You know, she was just a big old battle axe. And then in the second, oh, wait a minute, she's got some oomph here.
She might be what happens to Myrtle if Myrtle is thwarted for her entire life.
See.
Oh.
So you've got a plan for her.
Well, no, I don't intend to thwart Myrtle quite so much, but I can picture a young Aunt Helena having been at one point irrepressible, but constantly.
See, you gotta like her. You gotta like her,
You're
although she
absolutely
didn't
right.
have a whole lot to do in book 4.
Not a whole lot, but you know, she still manages to make herself the most important character in every one of her scenes.
That is true. Yes.
That is Aunt
She
Helena.
did take charge.
She
She takes charge all over the place. Yes. So, okay, because I want to see more of her.
So okay, well, good to know. So the fun thing about writing book two, my editor, Elise Howard, who has now retired,
Yeah.
sob, but I have a delightful new editor, Christina Leifand, yay. So, but Elise loathed Aunt Helena in book one. She just could not stand her.
Well,
And
that's, but
I
you
was
wrote
trying to use
exactly-
nice words.
yes, exactly yeah, no, you shouldn't like Aunt Helena in book one. And so when I explained what was, I said, Aunt Helena is going to take for book two, How to Get Away with Myrtle. Aunt Helena takes Myrtle and Miss Judson on a railway holiday to the seaside. And when I pitched this, Elise said, "Can Aunt Helena get hit by the train?" So
Wow.
there's Aunt Helena's fan club.
Wow.
So,
Speaking of Myrtle Means an Opportunity, tell her your title
Oh,
idea.
I've got another title because
oh
you know
yes,
I love.
please.
So, Myrtle and Mayhem.
Myrtle and Mayhem, love it.
It's yours.
Thank you. What happens in it?
Oh, I
Do we
haven't
have
gotten
do
that
we have a
far. It was
movie?
just, it was
Okay.
just a gift. It was just a gift. I was reading, going along and going, what's next? And then I was so tickled to see that you had a fifth coming out. Because that Myrtle Means an Opportunity. That's fun too.
Yeah,
Yes,
those are
that
great.
was really fun.
So do you
The
have like a,
titles are half the fun.
right? Do you have like a running title, a running list of
List?
titles you'd like
Oh
to
yes, I have a file on my computer, and I want to say it's about 25 pages long now. And it's called Master List of Chapter Titles, because if there are any aspiring series writers watching out there right now, whatever you do on book one of a series, you will then have to repeat on every other volume. So when we started with Premeditated Myrtle, which book one of the Myrtle Hardcastle Mysteries, two over from the left, the blue one, that one. Yep. Premeditated Myrtle has most of the titles are in legal Latin terms.
Right.
And then she has these clever epigraphs at the beginning of every chapter, written by the erudite legal scholar H.M. Hardcastle. And so on every subsequent book, we're going on 5 now. So 5 times 30, whatever that is.
150.
You're writing another book.
Yeah.
Within a book.
She's always writing. So I have to come up with the book that the epigraphs are from, and all of the appropriate chapter titles. And so the book that H.M. Hardcastle is working on in Myrtle Peril is called Foundations of Legal Medicine, and it is a primer on Victorian forensic science and the role of forensic medicine in law, in legal cases. And to do that research, I drew on, so I studied to be a forensic anthropologist in college. And so those classes just opened up such a huge world to me and showed me a different way to, right. So the idea that the dead had stories to tell us.
Oh yeah.
Just blew me away as a young scholar. And I was just fascinated. They can't speak to us, but their testimony is in the bones.
Yes.
Their testimony is in those in those remains. And so I knew I wanted to share that fascination and Myrtle's fascination with all of those amazing things that you can find in the examination, in an autopsy, in a forensic examination. And so that's where our epigraphs came from. And I believe somewhere before I started talking, there was a question, and I have no idea what it was.
That's okay, but I just have to add something. So when I got my library degree, when dinosaurs roamed the earth, I had to get practical experience before I could graduate. And I worked at a medical research facility in Philadelphia and worked with forensic anthropologists to catalog bodies that had
Oh,
been
well, that's a different library task that you don't think about every day.
no, but they had been brought back in expeditions in the 18th and 19th century.
Oh,
And
wow.
the Native American Grave Repatriation Act
Sure,
required
sure.
them to the institution to catalog everything. So
Well,
as a
that-
graduate student, I was like fully gown masked cataloging.
That
The
was
forensic
about the same
anthropologist.
time that because NAGPRA was a very big deal at the time,
Right.
and I'm sure that we're still continuing with it. But yeah, that was one of our guiding principles.
Yeah.
the time I
But
was
so
studying
yeah,
it,
so fun. So small world. I also worked with forensic anthropologists.
yeah. So it's
Pretty
there
fun.
are
You didn't-
more
I
people
didn't
out
know
there than we realized.
2 truths and a lie. You guys have
Yeah,
got
I got
it.
that one. I've handled dead bodies from the 19th century. Okay, do you have another
Yes.
one?
No, I
Well,
don't
no,
have a
because-
question, but what does come through is that enthusiasm that Myrtle has for, the books are just such romps, and she's so enthusiastic about all things gross, to many people.
Not all things gross. She is not a bug person.
True.
But most, but so I don't know if
But
you've,
chloroform.
that's true. I don't know if you've heard this story, but over your left shoulder, you have someone watching you, Elizabeth,
Yes.
behind you.
Yes, I do.
Can you talk a little bit about that experience and tell everybody who that is looking over your shoulder?
So are we talking about Gary here?
Yes, we're talking about Gary.
We're talking about Gary. Okay. So we like to call him Gary. This is my Edgar Award, as in the Edgar Allan Poe Award. And it was given, I don't have a sticker on this book, but Premeditated Myrtle won the Edgar Award for Best Juvenile Mystery for 2020. And Cold Blooded Myrtle, which is the green one, yes, that one, was nominated for the Edgar Award this year. So Gary and I are great friends. And so it is the highest honor given to an American mystery. And it is named for Edgar Allan Poe. And a lot of us think of Edgar Allan Poe as the creepy story dude and the Telltale Heart and lots of Gothic horror. But he actually was at the forefront of American mystery fiction with his French sleuth, Auguste Dupin, and his Murders in the Rue Morgue. Yep. And when the Mystery Writers of America formed their mystery award 76 years ago now, they named it for the original master himself, Edgar Allan Poe. And so the award that comes is a plaster bust of the master of all things creepy. And I am now remembering that I have party hats, and Gary was supposed to be wearing a party hat today.
That's okay. We're imagining it and we're fine.
So now the fascination for all things gory. So for many, many years, Poe wrote in the early 1800s, 1820s, and he died as a young man, and has been known, the received wisdom, the conventional understanding of Poe's death is that he died in a drunken stupor in a gutter. And recently, I want to say within the last 10 years, some American pathologists put together, oh, okay, yes, thank you very much. We can now celebrate in style. And Gary has his party hat on. Thanks, CJ.
I like that.
So let's not drop him. So several years ago, you're gonna have to wear it at a jaunty angle because it won't fit on the shelf apparently. So a group of a group of pathologists put together a case study of a death excuse me, with all of the symptoms, and they presented it at a pathology conference as a case study of what is the differential diagnosis of this patient's death? How do we think, based on these known symptoms for how this patient presented and then died, how do we think he perished? And it was, in fact, the symptoms exhibited by Edgar Allan Poe before his death. It took him several days to die after he was found and hospitalized. And the universal conclusion among these pathologists at this conference was that the patient had died of rabies.
Rabies.
Right?
Oh, that's so fitting.
Rabies, drunk.
Rabies.
Wow.
So get your pets vaccinated.
Yes, exactly. Yes,
And
exactly. And yeah, exactly.
stay away from
Yeah.
biting things. Yeah.
Exactly.
Raccoons.
Don't annoy the wildlife. Yeah.
Exactly.
But it's that sort of, yeah, wow, rabies, cool story. We have a comment from the audience.
Yes. Yeah, no, we see
Yeah,
that.
so the Myrtle books, I think everyone watching is probably a Myrtle fan, but if you happen to be a new Myrtle fan, and In Myrtle Peril is your first Myrtle book, the Myrtle books are for every person who hears that and thinks, wow, rabies, cool story.
Exactly.
These are your books.
That is awesome.
So,
Elizabeth, we do have some questions.
wonderful.
So one from Debbie wondering, do you have places you'd like to set another story? You know, you've been on a train, in a hospital in Scotland.
So many places. One of the ones that is really, really fascinating. So one of the things that I like to do with the Myrtle books is to get across how modern Myrtle's world is. Myrtle is a bleeding edge, early adopter of the latest technology. She would be racing out to get that crazy expensive new Samsung phone that whatever. And so I love to give her settings that are as modern and cutting edge and thoroughly new as we can. And one of the most fascinating exercises in modernity in the Victorian British imagination was the Crystal Palace, which will be about 50 years old by the time Myrtle would get there. But it was this amazing architectural marvel built in the 1850s, possibly 1850, spearheaded by Prince Albert for the Great Expedition that showcased British industry. And it was this massive, even building the venue, it's a massive greenhouse, basically, this huge glass structure that was built in a park, from entirely new materials. Everything that went into building it was new. The designs were new. The technology was new. The materials were new. And the Crystal Palace, after the expedition was over, continued to serve as an exhibit hall until it burned down in the 1930s, sadly. But it would be such fun to send Myrtle and company to the Crystal Palace to do something.
That would be really cool.
I have not found the other crazy piece that obviously belongs in the Crystal Palace. Amateur dramatics or Egyptology, I don't know. But when it happens, they will come colliding, and I will have the bones of Myrtle and Mayhem.
Yes, yay!
So,
You get on that.
yes, we'll get right on that.
So talking about places that you like, that you might set things, do you have, I know you have a list of chapter titles. Do you have also have a list of situations, scenarios that you want to put Myrtle in?
Well, so the last two Myrtle books, so the one that I've just finished, Myrtle Means an Opportunity, and the one that we're technically talking about tonight in Myrtle Peril were both actually I will say that the first five Myrtle books were all inspired by my personal favorite mystery tropes.
Right.
So the stories, the classic mystery setups. So the first one is your sort of your cozy English village.
Yep.
There's a garden and a gardener who has passed away. And the second one is a murder on a train. England is not large enough to set an entire novel on a train, so the train had to actually stop at the seaside, so we got that part in. So we have Myrtle on Holiday. And book 3, Cold-Blooded Myrtle, is a Christmas mystery plus an archaeological scandal, because those two things obviously go together.
So well.
Yeah. And book 4 was inspired by the favorite trope of the sleuth is in the hospital and witnesses a murder. And book 4, oh, love the tunnels in book 3. Yay! So book 5 is another classic mystery setup where the sleuth has received a great inheritance. And then from, out of the blue, an unexpected inheritance. So that's what happens in book 5. So I will mine the depths of the mystery tropes and see which one bubbles up to the surface as the most appealing, and the oh, I like the structure of this, and how has this been done in the past, and how can I fit Myrtle and Miss Judson and Peony and Father and Great Aunt Helena and Mr. Blakeney and now Jeannie.
Exactly.
Don't miss anyone.
No, don't miss anyone. Yeah. How do I get my characters into this particular situation? I kind of feel like I'm writing for Murdoch mysteries every book. Because they've done them all. I'm not sure I'll get to aliens, but we'll just see. It depends a lot on what fascinating aspect of Victorian science catches my imagination for each book.
And the inventions.
Yes.
So you can have all the early
yours.
adopter stuff. Yeah. So do you have a lot of books? Are you researching in books? Are you researching electronically? Are you going to the library? How are you gathering your information?
So yes, so all of the above. So I start gathering books, both modern historical studies on particular things. So for In Myrtle Peril, I read a couple of the best books on the Mary Celeste. I read a couple of books about another shipwreck, the Mignonette, that happened in the 1890s, possibly 1880s. The date has escaped me in the throes of another book. But so I will review, because I don't always have as much time to do as much freewheeling research as I would like. I try to focus in on things that I can get the information that I need. So I'll read a book on the Mary Celeste. I'll read a book on Victorian hospital culture. And then I do tons and tons and tons of image research. And a lot of that occurs online with museum collections that have been digitized, archives that have been digitized, newspapers that have been digitized. And one of the reasons that I originally set Premeditated Myrtle in 1893 was because that was the year of the Columbia exposition in Chicago, the Chicago World's Fair, because there is so much information available about that year that is easily and readily accessible.
Oh, yeah. That's smart.
And there's so much ephemera still in existence. And as I've gotten more and more and more familiar and deeper and deeper and deeper into the 1890s, That ephemera kind of finds me. So I have now in my grasp here at home a robust collection of original catalogs and fashion plates,
Oh,
and I have this magnificent booklet. So if you're a child of the 80s ish, if you subscribed to Reader's Digest, you've got this like subscribe to Reader's Digest and we'll send you 6 free books. And they're like the how to fix everything in your home and how to, so publications in Myrtle's day did kind of the same thing, and you could get all of these crazy extra volumes, and I have one, and I did remember it. And it was one of the books that I used for research for this book in Myrtle Peril. It's a patent medicine guide for by a company that made the Spavin cure. Spavin apparently is a Victorian name for a type of arthritis that horses get. So the Spavin cure booklet, it has all of the things, everything that you need, and the Spavin cure that you can buy from these Spavin cure places. It's not just good for curing your spavin. It's also good, it's a floor cleaner and a dessert topping. It's those. So I have a lovely collection of all of those, and I try to bring that material culture into Myrtle's world and surround her with it. So and I don't always necessarily explain it all to my readers, because I kind of want them to get the feeling that this is just that she doesn't need to tell you. So there's a running thread in book 4 in Myrtle Peril about this ghastly hospital food that her father is being served, and it is called Bovril. And it is I believe you can still buy Bovril. You can actually buy vegetarian Bovril now. Bovril is,
and Nurse doesn't heat it up.
Concentrate, because he's not allowed hot liquids.
Oh, right.
He's had tonsillectomy. No, Bovril was invented for the British Army during the Crimean War. It is a nutrient-dense meat paste.
Nasty.
That you can stir up and feed to your troops. And the British Empire marched on Bovril, and so naturally we're going to feed it to our hospital patients. And but that's the sort of things that I have delighted in immersing myself in, and just love sharing with Myrtle's readers.
Well, it is fun because you find something, and there's a little note maybe at the bottom called a footnote, but then and then you have to grab and you have to Google it.
yes.
But it doesn't take you out of the story.
No, it doesn't. I agree.
adds to the fun.
It enhances the world.
Yes. And you feel so smart.
Part of the reason those evolved is I have always written historical fiction and historical fantasy. And one of the things that happens when you write historical fiction is all of those fascinating things, sometimes the most fascinating things, don't make it onto the page of the book because you just can't wrangle them into being germane to the plot. And you can't force them in to help move the plot along. And so I realized a couple of pages in to writing premeditated Myrtle, Myrtle was just as excited to stop and tell me the fascinating fact that she had stumbled upon. And we all know kids like that.
Right.
Kids that are going to tell you the coolest thing they learned today at school.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And that's who Myrtle is. And she dropped that first footnote in, and I was enchanted, and I thought, this is fantastic, because we can share everything that Myrtle loves will get as much written into the text as we can, and whatever doesn't fit in the text, we'll get a footnote, and it will just add to the fun.
That's fantastic.
does.
And Myrtle is so charming.
She is.
We just
She is
adore
just
her.
perfect.
Oh,
And we're so grateful to you for spending time with us this evening.
thank you
Congratulations
so
on your
much.
new book. We're so happy for you. We're going
Well,
to
thank you.
And we're gonna sell it.
We're going to sell it like we always
Can
do.
I share one last thing?
You may.
Yes.
Actually, it's two last things.
You
Two
may.
last things. So first of all, Myrtle's fans, as you know, are the best fans in the world. And I have gotten fan art from all around the world. And this is my newest piece.
Oh, let's see it.
Peony.
Isn't she
Look at
amazing?
her.
Someone
She's
made
a
that?
needle felted peony.
Oh, how about that?
Isn't that
My
amazing? And she's the perfect size for
God.
for Myrtle.
Look at there.
So that was just she just blew
Oh
me
my
away.
gosh, that's so astonishing to be
Yeah.
able to receive something like that.
Yes, so Patricia O'Brien made this, and I'm trying to she claims it was her first effort at needle felting. I don't know what she retired from to do needle felting, but clearly this was meant to be. So we're trying to talk her into starting her own little cottage industry of
Oh, it's beautiful.
needle felting everyone's feline sidekicks.
That's
And
awesome.
then the other thing, so one of the props that Sally Cook has in book 4 is a locket that she found in her parents' belongings. And that locket has a magnifying glass in it. And that locket is a real locket, and it's mine.
Oh,
And you probably won't be able to see, I probably won't be able to get but you can kind of see there's a
pattern.
ship and a mountain. It's like a little
something
tiny ship and
strange.
a mountain. And I was given this. See if we
someone
can-
made that. And look at the magnifying glass.
It's got a
Oh,
little magnifying glass in it, so you can look through it and look, and it enlarges the, oh, there we go. And it enlarges the photograph that's inside. And
Yes.
I was given this by my grandparents when I was about 12. And the story was that it was invented by an ancestor of mine, but that's, there are a lot of stories from that side of the family, but that is the whole story. That's the whole story. And my in-spouse counsel, my at-home attorney, has done a little bit of patent research. We haven't quite tracked down exactly who invented it, but I gave this to Sally because it was such a fascinating and intricate little piece of Victorian technology that I knew would enchant Myrtle.
absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you
for
so much.
sharing
This has
everything.
been
See ya.
amazing. Thank you.
We're so grateful to you. Have a lovely evening. If you haven't ordered your copy of Myrtle yet, order it from us, and we will include a signed book plate. They arrived today, Elizabeth.
Oh,
So-
wonderful. Good, good, good.
Yes. So Caroline's
That
gonna
post
paste
box
it.
was a little dodgy, so I'm glad they made it.
That is hilarious. So Caroline's just pasted the link in one more time. But everybody, thank you so much for joining us. It's so fun. Jennifer,
Thank
thank
you
you for being with me.
Thanks
so
for
much
inviting me. It's good to
For
be here.
the
Caroline.
support of Myrtle for the last 4 books. It's meant
Biggest
the
fans.
world.
We love her so
Mhm.
much.
Thank
We
you.
love
I
you.
would love to come to Houston and do this in person,
Someday it's going to happen.
maybe.
Let's
I
go
would
for
love
book
it.
5. Let's go for book 5.
Fantastic.
All right, everybody, have a great evening. Thanks
Have a
for
good
joining
night.
us.
Night.
Thanks again.
Bye-bye.